The flickering neon sign outside the boarded-up diner cast a sickly pink glow onto the rain-slick pavement. I sat behind the wheel of my aging Honda, engine ticking as it cooled, the wipers smearing water in slow, tired arcs across the windshield. A deep breath, then another. My fingers trembled on the steering wheel, not from the cold. Family dinner. They still called it that, as if it were sacred. As if it hadn't become a monthly tribunal. I glanced at the rearview mirror. My face stared back, calm, composed, unreadable. Just the way I'd trained it. I adjusted the single pearl earring, Grandma's. The only thing I still wore from the life they once approved of. A light buzzed to life overhead as I stepped out into the drizzle, my heels clicking on cracked concrete. My parents had moved to this part of the city after Kimberly's promotion, an old textile district turned gentrified fortress. Cold steel, big windows, and zero warmth. The front door opened before I could knock. "Margaret's here," came my mother's voice from somewhere deep inside, flat as ever. The way she said it, it wasn't welcome. It was warning. Kimberly appeared in the doorway like a queen descending her palace steps. Her lipstick didn't dare smudge, even in the rain. She was draped in navy wool, the gold Atlas Corp pin winking on her lapel like a smug little eye. "On time." "Color me shocked," she said, not bothering to hide her smile. "Still dragging that relic around?" She gestured toward my car. I gave her a slow look. "Still mistaking money for taste?" She smirked, brushing past me into the foyer, where sterile lighting illuminated pristine floors and family photos in glossy black frames. Only Kimberly's graduation portrait hung in the center. My place on the wall had been quietly demoted to a side table. In the dining room, Dad sat like a relic of himself, nursing a scotch that had already melted halfway to water. Mom arranged utensils with surgical precision. The china was out, of course. Nothing says passive aggression like bone-white porcelain. "We put you by Aunt Donna," my mother said without looking up. "You two have things to talk about." I didn't move. "I'll sit here," I said, pulling out the chair directly across from Kimberly. My voice was calm, but inside, something twisted like a blade. Mom's eyes flicked up. A pause, then a shrug. "Suit yourself." Kimberly wasted no time. "They just announced it," she said as the first course was served, salmon, naturally. "I'm the youngest senior VP in Atlas history." Dad raised his glass, grinning like a campaign ad. "My girl. Always the achiever." My fork hovered above my plate. I imagined it bending. "Congratulations." Kimberly leaned forward, tone syrupy and sharp. "Still doing that freelance thing? Must be exhausting, working for yourself. No security, no benefits, no future." Mom chimed in, cutting the tension like a butter knife through concrete. "Kimberly, don't be cruel. Margaret's doing her best." "I am," I said. "In fact, I've been following the Sanchez merger." "Tough integration, I hear." Kimberly's eyes sharpened, just a flicker, then gone. "Handled," she said tightly. "Tech alignments locked. My team's on top of it." "Must be a good team," I murmured, slicing my salmon with slow, deliberate care. Considering Sanchez's entire backend is legacy software from the 90s. A pause. Her jaw clenched just once. Mom, sensing the silence growing teeth, launched into a monologue about the neighbor's yard renovation. No one listened. Then Kimberly cleared her throat like a stage actor. "Actually, there's more. The board called me in today. Special meeting. Here it comes. They're expanding my role. Starting next month, I'll oversee all operational integration. For both companies." She smiled like she'd won something. "It's basically a CEO-level role." "Practically," I said, folding my napkin with slow precision. The corners were sharp. Like my smile. "My sister's a nobody," Kimberly sneered, swirling her wine with theatrical flair. Her voice, brittle with triumph, bounced off the high ceilings like a knife thrown for applause. "And I just got promoted. Atlas Corporation. 2 entire companies under my command. Can you even imagine? I set down my fork. The silver clink echoed like a trigger. With slow deliberation, I dabbed the corner of my lips and smiled, not with warmth, but with precision. A scalpel smile. Congratulations, I said, voice calm as glass. But I think I should clarify something. I'm the new CEO of Atlas Corporation. Silence detonated across the room. Kimberly's wine glass hovered in midair, her fingers frozen in disbelief. Dad's fork dropped to his plate, landing with a dull metallic clang. Mom stopped mid-sentence, her lips parted in stunned confusion. Kimberly blinked. What? Atlas Corp, I repeated, folding my napkin. Board appointed me this morning. I start Monday. That's not possible, she whispered, voice cracking. I would have known. I'm Senior VP. I'm in every major meeting. I pulled out my phone, tapped twice, and turned the screen toward her. Only the ones you're invited to. Here's the board memo. The official announcement goes out at 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, but as my direct report, I thought you deserved a personal heads up. Her lips moved, but no sound came. When she finally spoke, the words landed like lead. Direct report? I watched the color drain from her face as the pieces locked into place. Oh, I added gently, and regarding the Sanchez merger, we'll need to revisit those complications, specifically the $300 million in tech debt your team somehow missed. Dad straightened, his glass slamming onto the table. Margaret, what exactly is this? I rose slowly, brushing invisible lint from my dress. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I've been consulting quietly for Atlas for 5 years, rebuilding their tech from the inside out, preparing them and myself for this exact moment. Kimberly's face twisted. You can't. I can. I met her eyes, steel beneath the smile. And I already have. Monday, 9 a.m., don't be late. I turned to our parents, who still looked like ghosts flickering between channels. Dinner was lovely, I said. Though next time, perhaps we can all sit at the main table. Outside, the rain had cleared. The air smelled of iron and smoke, like something old burning away. My heels clicked against the wet stone walkway with satisfying finality. Behind me, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Kimberly's voice rose in ragged panic. Mom tried soothing her. Dad kept asking the same question over and over. But I didn't turn around. I wasn't done. Monday morning. The Atlas Corp headquarters carved into the skyline like a blade. 60 stories of glass and ambition, gleaming cold in the early sun. I eased my battered Honda into the CEO parking spot, right beside Kimberly's Mercedes, and turned off the engine. Joshua, the security guard, did a double take as I stepped out. Morning, Joshua, I said, flashing my new badge. How's Stona doing at Columbia? His face lit up. That scholarship you pushed for? Changed everything. Good, I said, heading for the entrance. Keep me updated. Inside, the marble lobby buzzed like a hive. Conversations simmered just below the surface, all sharp glances and hushed voices. The email hadn't gone out yet, but the leak had. Some internal hire, I heard. Has to be Kimberly Sanchez. She's been telling everyone it's her. Could be that mystery consultant. The elevator chimed. The executive floor was a different world, silent, airless, like the pause before a thunderclap. Kimberly's assistant, Kenneth, sat stiff-backed, eyes locked on her monitor, mouth slightly ajar. She looked up, startled. Miss Thomp, Margaret. You're early. Is my sister in? Kenneth nodded nervously. Yes, ma'am. She's in her office, her current office. I smiled. Let her know the new CEO wants to see her. 10 minutes. Kenneth swallowed. Yes, of course. And Kenneth. She looked up, eyes wide. You can call me Margaret. The CEO's suite was just as I remembered, opulent, outdated, and hungry to impress. Mahogany. Leather. The weight of decisions made by men who had never been second-guessed. I crossed to the desk, opened the laptop, and signed in with the credentials they'd issued just hours ago. It accepted them without hesitation. A text buzzed across my screen. "Kimberly, we need to talk." Now. I leaned back, the city glittering behind me through the wall of glass, and waited. For the first time, this office felt like mine. The door slammed open so hard it rattled the frosted glass pane. Kimberly stormed in, her heels scuffing the polished floor, her perfect composure unraveling like a threadbare costume. The Chanel suit she wore like armor was wrinkled at the cuffs, and her eyes, red-rimmed and frantic, betrayed a sleepless night. She threw a printout across the desk. "What the hell is this?" I didn't flinch. Just leaned back in the leather chair, my chair now, and glanced at the email header like it was old news. "Good morning to you too, Kimberly," I said, voice calm as velvet. "Please. Sit down." "I will not sit." She stopped herself, fuming. "You blindsided me. Sabotaged me. I've built this role for years. I bled for this company." "No," I said. "You bled other people dry and called it ambition." Her breath caught, but she pushed forward, desperate. "You don't know what it took. How hard I've worked, how many nights I stayed late, fixing things no one else would touch. Hiding your mistakes in the Sanchez deal. Doctoring metrics. Lifting entire frameworks from my reports and calling them your own." I turned the laptop screen toward her. "Would you like to see the files? The audit trail? The board already has." Her eyes flicked to the screen, then away, too fast. "You're bluffing." I tapped a key. The screen lit up with highlighted lines of code, financial records, internal memos. The truth laid bare. "The board," she croaked. "They'd never go behind my back." "You mean the old board? The ones who stepped down after the pension scandal?" I met her eyes coldly. "The new board was chosen for their ethics." "A foreign concept, I know." Kimberly's knees gave out. She sank into a chair, spine folding in on itself. "How long?" she whispered. 5 years, I said. "Since you stole my restructuring plan and paraded it around like your brainchild." Her mouth trembled. "I thought you were just freelancing. Drifting." I laughed once, low and bitter. "Of course you did. That was the point. While you soaked up praise and bonuses, I built the real foundation underneath your empty throne." She shook her head slowly. "I earned this." "No," I said. "But now you have a chance to start earning something." I slid a folder across the desk. The title on it, printed in clean, unforgiving letters. "Internal Role Transfer, Junior Operations Manager." Kimberly stared at it like it was poison. "Junior," she choked. "You're demoting me? I'm offering you a position that matches your actual contributions. You'll report to the team that's been cleaning up after you for years." Her hand curled into a fist on the desk. "I'll resign." "You're free to." I stood slowly, smoothing the lapels of my blazer. "But if you do, I'll be obligated to include full documentation of your financial misreporting in our SEC disclosure." I imagine recruiters won't love that. The intercom crackled. "Miss Sanchez," Kenneth said, her voice tight but professional. "The board is assembled." "Thank you," I replied. Then I looked down at my sister, who suddenly seemed very small in a room built for power. "Come along, Kimberly. You've got a presentation to give. This time, let's try using real numbers." The boardroom felt like a courtroom now, sterile and sharpened. The new members sat in a semicircle of judgment, notebooks open, eyes alert. Kimberly stood at the front, visibly unraveling as she clicked through the deck. Her voice wavered, her words faltered. Inflated projections. Hidden liabilities. Half-truths crumbling under direct questioning. When she stumbled over a slide with contradictory figures, I stepped in. "That's why," I said, turning to the board, "we'll be extending the merger timeline. My transition teams have already flagged the integration risks and are preparing solutions." The board chair, a woman with eyes like cold steel, nodded. "Excellent work, Miss Sanchez. Both in uncovering these flaws and for the structural reforms from your prior consulting. Atlas owes you more than we realized." Kimberly's head whipped toward her. prior consulting? The chair smiled politely. You didn't know? Your sister's been behind nearly every successful initiative at Atlas for the last 5 years. Though, it seems, someone else was taking the credit. Kimberly said nothing, could say nothing. As the meeting ended and the board members filed out, I reached for her arm. Status meeting, I said quietly. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. My office. She nodded numbly, dazed. And Kimberly? I added, pausing at the doorway. Maybe skip the Chanel. Junior management doesn't really do couture. Back in my office, the skyline looked different, less like glass towers, more like dominoes, waiting. The Sanchez merger still needed surgery. The tech division needed rebuilding. And this company? It needed a soul. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Please call us. We need to understand what's happening. I stared at it for a long moment, then typed, nothing to understand. Just your nobody daughter doing what she always does, cleaning up everyone else's mess. And winning. The afternoon unfolded like a slow procession of masked confessions. One by one, they came, executives who had once walked past me like I was air. Now they appeared with polished grins and careful flattery, eager to align themselves with the new order. Suddenly, they'd always respected my ideas. Suddenly, they'd never truly agreed with Kimberly's abrasive style. Amazing, really, how quickly loyalty decays in the light of power. By sundown, the last remnants of the old hierarchy had begun to vanish. Kimberly's nameplate was unceremoniously removed from the executive suite. Her luxurious office now sat hollow and echoing, a mausoleum of self-delusion. Kenneth, sharp, loyal, criminally underused, was promoted. She'd be working directly with me. And the Sanchez merger team? Already in motion, executing strategies I'd drafted in silence months ago. I was packing up when the final email landed, its subject line as brittle as her pride. From Kimberly. You won't get away with this. Family doesn't do this to family. I stared at it for a long time, fingers poised over the keys. The office had grown quiet, save for the low hum of the city far below. I thought of all those family dinners, Kimberly's smug barbs, my mother's thin smiles, my father's proud silences. How Margaret was just a placeholder. The daughter-shaped shadow. I typed back. You're right. Family doesn't do this to family. Remember that next time you steal someone else's work. See you at tomorrow's meeting. Don't be late. The Honda purred to life as I pulled out of the CEO parking space. Fitting, somehow, my humble little car gliding out from beneath the glass tower where I now sat at the top. Tomorrow would bring its own storm. 6 months later, Atlas had become something else entirely. The Sanchez merger, restructured and transparent, was now a gold standard for integration strategy. We'd been featured in Forbes. The stock had soared. Our employee survey? Off the charts. But I wasn't chasing headlines. I was chasing momentum. And Kimberly? She'd adapted, barely. The Mercedes was gone, company asset reclaimed. Now she drove a dented silver Civic, parking with the rest of the staff. No special badge. No whispered deference. Every Tuesday, she sat in the conference room with the other managers, presenting real data. Honest numbers. She was learning, slowly, how to do the job she once pretended to own. It was a Tuesday, ironically, her weekly report day, when Kenneth's voice came through the intercom, gentler than usual. Margaret, your parents are here. No appointment. I stared at the door. 6 months. No calls returned. No invitations accepted. They'd finally skipped the silence and arrived in person. Send them in. They stepped inside with tentative formality, like tourists visiting a memorial. Their eyes scanned the office, no more mahogany intimidation, no throne-like chairs. Just soft light, collaborative spaces, windows wide with possibility. Mom wore a tailored blazer that looked more costume than comfort. Dad's presence, the one that used to fill every room, felt oddly diminished. Nice view, he said weakly, gesturing to the skyline. Better than the failure corner at dinner, I said, my voice even. Please sit. They settled into the soft conference chairs across from me. Mom clutched her handbag like a lifeline. Margaret, she began, voice carefully measured, we've been trying to reach you. I've been busy, I said. Running the company you once told me to stop wasting my time on. But you knew what that was like, right? You always praised Kimberly's 60-hour weeks. Her business trips. Her corporate sacrifices. Dad shifted, eyes flicking away. We may have been hasty in our judgments. Hasty, I repeated, the word cold and tasteless on my tongue. I opened a file on my laptop, turning the screen toward them. Let's revisit. 5 years of dinners where I was sat next to Aunt Donna so we could talk about our shared failures. Repeated suggestions I get a real job. The time you both skipped my firm's launch party to toast Kimberly's 3rd promotion. Mom's eyes shimmered. Kimberly said, "That's the problem," I cut in. "You always listened to her. You never asked me. Never saw the pattern. Every time Atlas made a leap forward, I was behind it. You just assumed your golden child had touched another miracle." Dad looked up at the screen. Quarterly financials. Market share projections. Our internal culture scorecard. All flawless. And now, he asked quietly. I tapped to the next slide. Our 5-year forecast. Global expansion. Industry leadership. Now, Atlas is healthier than it's ever been. The Sanchez merger? Rescued. The tech division? Our largest growth sector. Mom's voice cracked. And Kimberly? I paused. She's learning. Slowly. She's learning what it means to actually work. To earn. To fail and still show up. I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled. But she's not the one I'm worried about anymore. Silence thickened between us. Not angry, just waited. Like history settling. Finally, I said, "Why are you here?" Mom reached across the table, hand trembling slightly. To understand. To say we were wrong. I looked at her hand. Then at the skyline behind them. Understanding, I said. That's a start. But I didn't take her hand. Not yet. I didn't look up from the spreadsheet when I spoke. Kenneth, send her in. A few minutes later, Kimberly entered the office, not the force of nature she once pretended to be, but something smaller. Softer. Stripped of performance. Her blouse was creased at the elbow, her hair pulled into a simple knot. No designer logos. No perfume clouds. Only restraint. Sit, I said. She obeyed. A beige folder appeared in her hands. Not glossy. Not designed to dazzle. Just numbers. Typed. Printed. Paper clipped at the corner. She didn't make a speech or offer excuses. She opened it and began reading. Her voice steady, even. Actual outcomes. Tangible progress. A few wins. A few misses. But no lies. When she finished, she didn't look up. I closed the folder. Let the silence breathe. You're improving, I said. Still learning. But it's honest work now. You're doing it. She nodded once. No pride. No bitterness. Just acknowledgement. Across the room, our parents were silent. Observers in a world they no longer understood. The reversal they had never imagined, one daughter rising, the other finally understanding gravity. There's one more item, I added, sliding a second folder across the desk. Kimberly hesitated, then opened it. Her eyes narrowed. Promotion, she said, her voice unreadable. Senior Operations Manager, I confirmed. You'll be heading the new regional office. Minneapolis. The word hung in the air like snow. Minneapolis? Mom's voice cracked. A growing market, I said. Real responsibility. And a clean slate. Kimberly stared at the offer as if it might vanish. Why me? She asked. Not defensive. Not angry. Just quiet. I shrugged. You showed up. You did the work. You stopped pretending. A beat passed. I'll take it, she said. Thank you. She left without further ceremony. Our parents stayed behind, still shell-shocked. The narrative they'd written for 36 years had been rewritten in one season. Dad finally exhaled. "We misjudged you," he said. "No embellishment. Just a single thread of truth." "Yes," I replied. Mom clutched her purse as though bracing for impact. "Is it too late to fix that?" I considered her. Considered all the years I'd swallowed silence, all the times their love had felt conditional, tied to metrics, titles, appearances. Then I reached up and touched the pearls at my ears. The only thing I ever wore with meaning. Grandma never asked for proof. "That depends," I said. "Are you ready to stop squinting at who I am?" They nodded. The air between us shifted, still heavy, but not quite so brittle. "Then come to dinner," I said. "At my place. No performance. No side tables. No good child or failure child. Just a table. And 4 chairs." That evening, after the office had emptied, I stood at the window. The city glimmered below, streetlights blinking like slow Morse code. My phone buzzed. "Kimberly, thank you for the second chance. For not burying me." I stared at the message, then typed, "You earned this one. That's the difference." Another ping. This time from Mom. "Your home is warm. Beautiful. Just like you. We're sorry." I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I walked to the far side of my desk and opened the drawer. Inside was a dusty photo frame. One of the old ones, before the lines were drawn. Back when we were just a family. Imperfect, human, still in motion. I held it for a moment, then buzzed the intercom. "Kenneth." "Yes." "Move the photo. The old one. Bring it here. To your desk." "Yes," I said. "Front and center. Let's stop pretending it belonged in the corner." Outside, the lights of the city flickered in the glass like stars trapped in steel. Success, I'd learned, wasn't a podium. It was a choice. Made quietly. Repeated daily. To lead with integrity. To rebuild what others broke. To forgive, but never forget. Sometimes, the best kind of justice doesn't come with applause. Just peace. And a seat at the head of the table.